I'm not alone in finding that as I get older, I talk a lot more like old folks I used to know talked. That being said, I want to talk today about this idea that even when I was a kid, and that's been 50 years ago, 45 years ago, whatever, there was this tendency for people to make it so that younger folks were aware of the value of work. But I want to say something that I think is important, and it is that even back then, I don't think they had expressed things in ways that made sense or were real to me. So I'm going to take the time to talk about progeny and gainfulness today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday the 15th of January of 2022. That would be the remainder of the Sabbath, which will end at sunset today as far as I get it. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on minds.com if you happen to catch me there, which is very unlikely at this point, but that may change in the future. But in any case, welcome aboard today, and hopefully you're having a good day. Subject for today, again, is progeny and gainfulness, and I'm going to do my usual run through my notes so that you have some idea what I'm talking about. When I was young, I found myself at loose ends a lot. Some of my time was taken up by doing things like sitting in classrooms, right? Once a week, I waited until the news agency Ask Your Parents, particularly if you grew up in Australia, opened to pick up the, even then not so great, papers for my father. Of course, though I was much less prone to do it than others, there was hanging out with various and sundry friends. In the end, though, there was lollygagging time. At one point, I found myself hanging around a local flea market. Seemed like a fun thing, so I did it. While I was there, I forged a slow but steady relationship, a friendship, you could say, with an older English gentleman and his German wife. I came to know and care a good deal for both of them, though I haven't seen them in many years, and I imagine they're both no longer on the planet. It's hard to say, but they were getting older then, and that's 50 years ago, like I say, pretty close to it. Well, he saw I was at loose ends and put me to work. Nothing hard, mind you. My reward was a $2 bill to spend as I saw fit. Australia had a 2, and he would give me a $2 bill. He would make sure he had one, and he would give it to me. As time went on, I forged more such relationships. I could get into what they were. I worked for a greengrocer and a sport and toy store and Asian handicraft store, among others, on a more or less volunteer basis. I steadily made my way from volunteer, though, with periodic benefits in most of those places, to kitchen worker in a local pizza restaurant owned by a Sicilian man and his Maltese wife, by the way. You could say I barely recognized my transition into the world of work. When I worked at that eatery, I was probably somewhere around 15 or 16, and ran the back room. Not that that's saying much, I was the only one there most of the time. I helped the owner build a walk-in freezer while working there, riveting together pieces of sheet metal and strips of aluminum that he bought to make that happen. I didn't understand at the time just how important what I was learning was. Later on, I came to realize that if I or others don't do things, they don't get done. As folks get older, new folks must step up and take over what they had been doing. In case you don't think that matters, imagine a world where nobody was making pizza. Most times these days it's all about teaching your young to be productive. That's what made me want to discuss progeny and gainfulness today. Now I'm done with my notes, and I'm going to go ahead and get on with my actual, my blah 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 time. There's a lot of stuff I haven't said in my notes today because I figured it was going to take me a long time to get through it. It didn't take me as long as I thought it would. That's fine. But one of the most important things is this. when most people teach you about hard work, they teach you about the reward that you get for doing it, and they sort of teach you about this sort of selfless perspective of going out and getting a job and doing work. But let me point something out that most people do not point out. And I've said this a number of times, so if you've heard this, you'll have to forgive me. But I wanted to take the time to actually put it forth as something that was a primary thing that I have out there in my podcasts. And it is this. And I sort of spoke to it in my notes, but not really as well as I could have done. When you don't work, and you get to the point where you can work, and other people get to the point where they either can no longer or no longer want to work, what happens is there are less people doing things for themselves and others that need done. I know you've probably heard me discuss this in my videos in the past. And the point is, in my mind, somebody has to be teaching this to people. And I said progeny and gainfulness with the idea of parents doing this. And I started to think about it, and I realized sometimes it's you as an employer owning a business or whatever who needs to teach this to others. And it's not just putting them to work and teaching them how to work hard. It is being that person who explains why what they're doing is necessary and important. I get that there's this idea that I'm not expressing, and it is basically climbing the ladder, getting higher and better in what you do, and in what you're paid for, and what people expect from you, and so forth. And that is necessary, and that is important. And it's important for people to become managers and supervisors, and it's important for people to become skilled tradesmen, and various other things. These are all important things, and I'm not trying to downplay any of this. But what I'm saying is, before any of that comes this idea that if people aren't doing things, they don't get done. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If people aren't stocking shelves, the shelves don't get stocked. If people aren't unloading ships, that doesn't happen. If people aren't building houses, carpenters, plumbers, roofers, whoever they happen to be, landscapers, ground preparation people, foundation pourers, right, concrete people, bricklayers, all of these people, if they're not doing their work, lawyers, doctors, software developers, one of my favorites to pick on because that's what I do as my quote day job. If there aren't people doing this work, it just doesn't get done. And I'm not saying you can't drop back, but let me just point something out to you. If you reduce the number of people that are doing various kinds of work, quality of life is reduced, particularly if there are more people on the planet when that happens. There are already, people will point out, folks who are starving to death because of a lack of food or whatever. There's already that. What happens when you stop making as much food? What happens when less people farm? What happens when less cattle ranchers produce beef or pig farmers produce pigs or whatever? Well, you don't have as much. And that, obviously, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying fruits and vegetables aren't every bit as important, right? What happens when your orange growers stop growing oranges, right? All of this stuff is important and needs to be considered. It needs to be considered by you, by your young, by those who work for you. They need to understand you're not just working because somebody said you need to work hard and industry is a good thing. You're working because if you don't, things stop getting done. Important, necessary things stop getting done. And people starve or at least are hungrier. The quality of food that you get is lower. The number of houses being built decreases. The number of houses being fixed gets smaller. All of these things happen that make it so that life is not as full a thing for a good many people out there in the world. So this is basically what I wanted to talk about and what I was trying to get across today in my little subject of progeny and gainfulness. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 15th of January of 2022. It means tomorrow will be Sunday, the 16th of January of 2022. As I say, today is that end of the Sabbath. Tomorrow will be the beginning of the Christian week, according to most people. A lot of folks will be getting Monday off, as Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, so hope you enjoy that if you get it off, and if you don't, thank you very much for being there for those of us that do. I know that it's not always fun or easy. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on CloudHub, on BitChute, and if you happen to see me on Minds, minds.com, on Minds as well. Subject for today has been progeny and gainfulness, and tomorrow we're going to talk about health and logic. I want to talk about how people look at being or getting healthy and how they are mistaken in doing that. That's what I want to discuss tomorrow. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you. Again, if you're observing that Sabbath, hope that the Sabbath is going well for you as well. And hopefully we will see you again on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday the 15th of January of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.